Hi, this is MX10, Stefan Kraus, and in this tutorial I want to show you how to use different sources from the internet like Facebook live streams, basically anything that can be open in a window in your computer. Use all those things, put them together in a switcher, in a broadcast style switcher, and broadcast that from TouchDesigner to a Facebook live page. So to do this, first we need to download a few things. First of all, we need to download TouchDesigner 099. Unfortunately, the TDI function only works in TouchDesigner Commercial, which is understandable if you see what kind of possibilities it opens up for you. However, for this tutorial is not really necessary. Basically, everything I describe here you can achieve without TouchDesigner Professional, Commercial, but is a bit less comfortable, a bit less broadcast style. However, so download whatever version of TouchDesigner is right for you and install. You will also want to get the Ndi Tools. Grab them at newtek.com, Ndi Tools. Basically just install all of them. What they allow you to do is to take lots of different sources like Windows on your computer, like your phone's cam, like your webcam, Adobe Premiere, Timeline, and so on, and provide these sources all over the network as video sources. And they come in this nice little package. Basically install all of them. What you also will need to create the stream is Open Broadcaster software. Is free and open source as far as I know. Download that and install it. And to make things really comfortable, there is this plugin here by Palakis, the OBS NDI plugin, which then allows you to open NDI sources in OBS. So I am assuming that you installed all the software, and if you did, then you're in Windows. Then you will find here the Newtek Ndi Tools. First thing we want to have a look at is the test patterns. So here you've got a choice of many different test patterns. And whichever one you select will be on your network as a NDI test signal. So we leave this window just here, and be aware that you can always add another test pattern window where you select another test pattern. Now you already got two NDI sources on your network. To take a look at these sources, you can use another Newtek tool. It's called Studio Monitor. And it opens this window, and that basically allows you to select all the NDI sources that are already out there on your network. So in my case, I've got a desktop capture with the usual results. I've got TouchDesigner out already. That's good. I've got the test patterns. But I can also just capture a window of TouchDesigner. So you see, all these sources are now already available on my network. And the third tool that I find extremely useful is this one, is called the scan converter. Now if you click the scan converter, nothing much happens, but in your taskbar you will have this icon, you tick Ndi Scan Converter, and if you right click it, you can start to add even more sources as Ndi streams. For example, if I choose Google Chrome here, I can get all the Google Chrome windows that I have open as inputs on my Ndi monitor. And well, there's something wrong with this one. Let's see. Sometimes it also needs a little bit of time to get going, but it's not the point. Usually it works quite well, and the great thing is it doesn't even work only on this computer, but every source on every other computer in the network that you provide in that way will be available for viewing or for using on all the other computers which are connected to the network. So that is very nice. And the next nice thing is then when you have installed OBS Studio, from which we are streaming right now, this tutorial recording, you will see that you can add from different sources. There is also a screen recording. There you can stream from media sources on your hard disk and so on, from game capture, but you can also, and that's very comfortable, add an Ndi source. And that's thankful because we installed the plugin before. So now I've got all the Ndi sources that I saw before. Again, here in my streaming software, where I can use them. You can scale the stuff. This works so that you define scenes here, where you can add sources here, so you can add several live sources to this composition. Let me add another one. So next Ndi source, which can then be, for example, shown picture in picture. Remember, both of these are live streams, which are now going out in the live stream that we just record. So if you want to get this stuff onto Facebook, you have to go here in the settings on the stream. You have to select Facebook Live. And the important thing is here it wants to know a stream key. So now, if you go to Facebook, by the way, there's like a nice thing called Facebook Live Map that shows you all the live streams that are on at the moment. So you can just tune in. We're going to use this later because I want to show you how you can use this as an Ndi source. However, if we now want to go and install this as a stream on our site, we go to Content Options, Videos, and then when you have the list of the videos, you see here is a Live button. Now press this Live button, wait for this window to come. You can give the video a title and all these kind of things. You can tag, work your social media, whatever. But what you need is to copy this stream key and paste it here. Bam, bam. Now, when you start your stream, buff, which I'm not going to do because I'm recording a tutorial, but I think you get the picture. If we start that stream now, that tutorial would be streamed live onto the Facebook page, where once the signal comes, it will be visible here, and this button will be blue. If I press it, I'm broadcasting live to Facebook. So how do I do that from TouchDesigner? That is basically not so difficult if you have TouchDesigner 0.99 commercial, because there's the Ndi in and the Ndi out object. So while the Ndi in allows me to select, maybe now I'm lucky with Chrome. Something's wrong with Chrome. One thing to think about with Chrome is, and maybe I changed that again, is if you have trouble getting signals from Chrome, you might want to turn on hardware acceleration on Chrome, because that might interfere. This thing probably is turned off again. However, that's what we get the test patterns for. So here we get TouchDesigner has to be running. We get our test patterns again and any other live signals. And what we also can do is start sending a live signal, an NDI signal from TouchDesigner. In this case, it's just called TouchDesigner MX. And to see if it's really on the network, we can go to Studio Monitor and see. Here we have TouchDesigner MX, which comes in nicely as another NDI source. Which means, again, that we can open it also now in OBS Studio. In its original resolution. Not only that, stuff can come in different resolutions through this NDI. It can also come with an alpha channel. I'm not sure if TouchDesigner supports that. I haven't really looked into it, but in general it's possible and good to know. So now back to the task at hand. Let's start with a clean slate in TouchDesigner and lay down a new container comp. That's going to be the core of our switcher. That's why we're going to make it a tiny bit bigger. I know it's not good practice to scale nodes, but I just can't say no to it to make things a bit seeming more orderly. We call this switcher. Set the resolution to 1280 by 720. That's a good resolution to send around lots of NDI signals. There's not too much bandwidth, and it's going to work for the non-commercial TouchDesigner versions quite well. So, excuse me, I have to look on my cheat sheet a little bit. This is my first proper video tutorial, and that means I have to look sometimes what I do next to not fall for confusion. And where I look is the tutorial, which I already wrote down with lots of screenshots. This is also going to be available in the link after the video. And that takes you through the whole thing step by step if you don't want to watch a video. But who doesn't want to watch a video? That's why I thought I'm also going to create this video. So what we know is that we want to use 16 sources in our switcher. Not all of them have to be NDI sources. They can also be just regular TouchDesigner sources. However, it's gonna be nice to be able to switch them. So what we need is 16 ins. We need 16 because originally this was designed for an MPC style 16 pad MIDI controller. The MIDI implementation is not so cool at the moment, but what worked really well is to just be able to select a video source by clicking on it. So we're gonna build a clickable GUI. So now in our container, we know that we need 16 ins, 16 in tops. So we're going to lay down 16 in tops by making one, copy it, and pasting 16 times. So number 16, number 1. And to make this look nice in the end, we're going to move that in the middle. So what we also know is that we want to switch between these sources. And what we maybe don't know yet, but what I'm going to tell you now, what we want to have is like an A-B style mixer. So we have 16 sources from which we can always select an A channel and a B channel, and then we can mix those two channels for the final output. This allows us to work on one channel while the other one is live on air, prepare a new scene, and then switch to that new scene. Everybody who's ever done some kind of live broadcast knows this kind of workflow. So 16 ins. What we need next is like 2 switches. One Also gonna make these slightly bigger. I'm gonna call it switch A, and I'm gonna make another one, and I'm gonna call it switch B. So now for the fun part, we want, in any case, whatever we do, that all of these 16 ins are available in switcher 1 and a switcher B. So what I'm going to do is select all ins and just connect them to switcher 1. That looks beautiful. Because it looks so beautiful, we're going to do the same thing and select it to switcher B. But we also know that we don't want to work with two signals. In the end, we want to have one output, which you're going to send to Facebook Live. Though at the end of this, I want to place an out. I'm pretty sure we're going to need that. And before the out, I'm going to place a cross, which will allow us to crossfade between the two switches. And so we can basically also connect the switches to the cross. And now is a good time to save. I'm going to save this as Ndi Tools. So next thing we want to do is jump out of here and see if our container does what we want, and it does. It has 16 inputs and 1 output. So next thing we want to do is to make something which gives us a stand-in content while we don't have a live signal, and which B allows us to label all the different ins that we're going to use. My idea was to build like a very clean switcher unit in the middle, have 16 ins, and in these 16 ins you can basically plug everything in. All that space on the left is to go really crazy on your networks and try all kinds of experimental stuff, which you will then plug in these containers where we label the sources, and then they will show up very orderly and neatly in the switcher. So to get this started, we're going to lay down another container comp, and this one we're going to call source 0 because we're going to use this as our master, which is going to be replicated by a replicator node. So let's dive in and lay down text top. Text 1, we're gonna set this to Arial. We're gonna set the auto fit if too large. We're gonna set the size to 400. Yes, and on the text side, we're not gonna have derivative, which is cool because we like derivative. Now we're gonna have this expression, me parent dot digits. Now it doesn't see it as an expression yet. It just shows us the text, so we need to make this interpretation on. And what happens is that this says, well, if there's numbers in the name of my parents, use these numbers. So if this is source 0, this is going to be a 0. Later we're going to have source 1 to 16, and automatically when we copy them, their number is going to show up here. So we're going to have numbered sources for our pleasure. Also, we want to turn this to 1280, 720, and we want to play a bit with the colors so that every source also has a different color, which makes them easier to handle. First of all, we're going to make the font orange because we're going to work a lot with orange here because I think it looks quite good with gray. And for the background color, which we're going to turn on, we're going to use the following expressions. Here we're going to say me parent digits divided by 32. Now we want this value to be on RGB. That means that we will get different shades of gray for our preview sources. In the other ones, we just gonna say they should be using the same thing, which is their own value for background color red. Let's not forget to turn background color alpha on so we can actually see it. I think I did everything that we want to do here. Exactly. So what we're gonna do now is gonna work on the rest of our thing. So we're gonna add an in. So this in is going to show up on the outside of the container. That's where we can plug our sources. And this one is the default that is going to be shown as long as the in doesn't have any input. So as long as you doesn't plug anything, you're just going to see like a black and white image with an orange number of your source. Then to make sure that all your inputs also fit to the processing inside your switcher, you need to add a fit here, and we're going to say this fit vertical. The resolution of this fit is also going to be the little HD. If you have very unusual sources, you might have to change this one to something else. And now we're going to split up the signal. We're going to send one to an out. I'm going to get that later, and we send another one to another text top, which again has the resolution of 1280/720 automatically. And we're going to use this text to give ourselves a little note. What is in this stream. So we're going to take this font, going to make it a bit bigger. Let's say 16 now. 80 is fine. Let's align it left and on top. Let's give it a border space of 20, 40, so it doesn't stick in the corner. Maybe here also 20. Again, sorry guys, we don't want this to say derivative. We want this to say this expression. This says get my parents parameter title and turn it into a string. Now when we turn this expression on, we get an error. Everything is red, and the error says basically that this operator, this parent operator, which is source 0, doesn't have an attribute title. And that's very true. So that's why we're going to give this container, this one, an attribute title. And we're going to do that with a custom component, because that way you can very easily just write in a name and is there. To do that, you right click the component, say customize component, and here you can add custom parameters to the object. The first thing we're gonna do is called page. We call this source. Now we've got a page on which we can put parameters, this one, and we're gonna add a parameter which is gonna be a string. So we can just type anything, and that is also gonna be called title. Add, make sure stir is enabled. Very good. So now we've got that parameter title, but the error message is still there. The error message is not there anymore. So now we want to see what's actually happening in there. So we're gonna go to look, and in background top we're gonna write /out1. This gives us a preview of the out, which is in this node. So we now see what is happening in that node. It's not scaled properly because also this one isn't scaled properly yet. Let me just do that and also give it a 1280 720 so everything is in the same aspect ratio. So now, oops, sorry. Now, thanks to our custom parameter, we can call this, for example, camera stage, and this should be written here now. Now, I made a little mistake. I patched out 1 to the preview. What I really want to do is to patch text 2 to the preview. So I have to go here to look and change this to text 2. Enter. So what we could do now is just copy paste this guy. And I'm actually really wondering why we're not doing that, but I think it's because I want to show you another useful functions for these kind of things. And as this is a tutorial, we might just as well learn something. So we're gonna add a replicator comp. We want this operator to replicate by number, and the number is going to be 17. So now we've got source 0, which is our master, and we want source 1 to 16 as copies. So this is going to be our master operator. And the name, we want all these things to have the source underscore. So now we've got 16 sources, but they're not in the right spot. So we're going to change this here from grid to vertical. And then we're going to use these values to move our ins into a nice position for what we're going to do. So now that we've got this, we can connect all the outs to the ins of the switcher, and we're gonna have to do this patiently by hand. So this looks about right. So now we've got that all set up. Let's jump back inside and see what's happening here. Okay, we've got switches with all our ins. They go through the cross, they go through the out. So what we want to do now is to build a nice little interface in which we can select the sources. So to do that, we lay down another container, and we call that selector A. This is gonna get a size of 640 by 360, and we're gonna jump inside. And just check what we're gonna do exactly? We're gonna set up a classical render setup by laying down a geo node. Camera node, light, and render. We're also gonna add a constant mat. So let's bring these in order. Actually, forget the geometry. So we have a camera, we have a light, we have a geometry, we have a render. We're gonna put the constant, give it to the geometry as a material. And we're gonna dive into the geo, delete the torus, lay down a rectangle sub, and give that the size, turn on the render and display flags, and give that a size of 1. And here we're gonna have 1 times 9 divided by 16, so we get 16:9 image. Because maybe later we're gonna change the size, we're gonna make this a bit more procedural. So we're gonna say we're gonna take size X, copy it here. We can shorten this by saying my parameter size X times 9 divided by 16 will give us always a 16:9 image. However, we change the size here, but leave it at 1. Now we're going to see how that works for us. So now we've got this one. Next we want to place a rectangle sub again. No, excuse me, a grid sub. Which is going to provide us with points. That points we're going to use to instance on. So we're going to make this grid, give it a size of 4 and of 2.25. Again, we could do the same thing here. Say this times 9 divided by 16 gives us also this. Let's have a look at this. It's a wireframe. That's not good. Polygon. And we're gonna have 4 by 4 rows in color. This will give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 dots where we can place our stuff. So on we go and turn that into a job. It's good. This is everything we need. I'm gonna add like a merge job because later other stuff is gonna be added to that, and we run that into a null, which we're gonna make selective. Check for everything. If I'm not totally mistaken, this stops basically every unnecessary cooking here, and only this one only cooks when really some changes happening. So after having some cooking problems, I now make this a practice to always have these selective nulls. I'm not sure yet if it has the desired effect, but hopefully it does. So what we do is we're gonna call this null instancer, because that's we're gonna use to instance. And one more thing before we use that is actually we add a pattern. A ramp with a length of 16, which makes us numbers from the range from 1 to 16. Now we're gonna merge that in here. I'm gonna check 16 numbers. It's always useful if you check if all the things that you put together in a merge for an instancing have the same number of points, and you can also visualize that .% or so. These are descriptors for our channels, and this one we're gonna rename from channel 1 to text, because that is going to help us. It generates now 16 numbers, so each of this number is going to be a source, which is going to be mapped to our instance. So what we can do now is we can use this instancer on the geo, going to the instance page, turning instancing on and feeding it the instancer. And now I can select tx, ty, tz properties coming from the grid to place these things here. I have to zoom out a little bit, and certainly it's not really necessary to use a perspective camera. Everything could be easier if you use it flat, but I think this is nicer. So now we can continue, and we can on page 2 feed the texture index text, so that each of the 16 instances will get an individual texture with the number text. And now we have to fill in here a path to the instance textures, and the instance textures that we want to use are those. And what we actually want to use is not those, but is here the text node in here, because that has the writing. So we want for our interface, we want to have the writing. For our switcher later, we want to use the Q signal. So how do we tell this to the instancing? I'm going to start by saying we're on the top of our project, project 1. In there, we want to go into all of the sources, source underscore 1 minus 16 means look into source 1 to 16, and there you're going to find operators, an operator called text 2. So this wildcard here gives us textures from 1 to 16, and this number says each of the instance has a number. So what we see here now is already a preview with this really strange effect now that the numbers are wrong. Let's see, this has to do with something what I did here. And it's really weird. When I did it the first time, it worked with some settings that made totally sense to me, and then after that it never did again. So here probably we have to say 0 to 16. Okay, now it works with these settings again. Yesterday I did it, I had to say amplitude of 2. Today not. Who knows? However, I'm not totally happy with the distribution, but that's quite easy now, because here I can just scale it in a little bit like this, and then use the camera to zoom a bit closer. That's the big advantage of making it 3D, because now some things like that become very easy. So this is what we get. Let me check if I forgot something. No, I don't think so. What we should do is run this to an out. So we can actually see it on the container. /out1. Here we go. So now what I want to do is to make this panel clickable and get the information which of the sources I have clicked on. To do that, we need to add some more nodes, but not that many. The most important of them is a panel mode that is automatically set to the panel is living in, which is this selector A. And we don't want to know everything from this. We want to know select. That means when something is clicked, and we want a U and we want a V. That's the UV coordinates of the point where it has been clicked. This information we turn into a dot with a top to dot. And from there we're gonna go to a render pick. So the top to dot needs just to include the names, and that's it. And the render pick needs to know which strategy, and the strategy is hold last picked. Next cook faster is good. Pick radius is 3. It wants to know which render we're referring to. Whoop. This reminds me that we also have to set the size of this render not to 1280 by 720, which is default, but to 640 by 360, which is half the size, which is exactly what we need. No need to render anymore. So from the render pick, we are not interested in too much stuff, but we're interested in having it in camera space, and we want to fetch the instance IDs. So now let's check if that works. Yes, but we're still getting too much information, so we need to use a select dot and filter out we want to select only row 1, and we want to select the columns, the name, instance, and we only want that column. So now we get that number, and that number should correspond to the channels. It doesn't exactly, because it starts with 0. Yeah. There it is, the fucking problem. I just see that we skipped the 9 this time. Let me see if that helps. No. One, two, three, four, five. Don't ask me. Amplitude of 0.95. However, we get 16 numbers now. How does that work for our select? 0, 15. Okay. That's not really a drama for us. We're gonna turn that back into a chop. With settings. channel per column. The first row is values, second row is values. So, and we want to rename this to name to source A. Let's see if these numbers are a problem. I guess they are, so let's insert a math which takes this value range from 0 to 15 to 1 to 16. Okay. So let's take this and send it to an out, so we can use it on the outside, and also run this into a fan. Fan with 16 outputs. So now 16, 1, 1. Yeah, so the mask is not really necessary. That's why I didn't have it before. Do we learn? Do not improvise in tutorials. So we've got the fan here, we've got the out there. Let's see what's next. Yeah, we should run this into a shuffle. And swap channels and samples. So we now get this in a way that we can use it for our instancing. And we want to use this in two different ways. So we need two mask chops who will give us different ranges, and we're also gonna rename them so that one of them is called select and the other one of them is called highlight. So what ranges are we gonna give them? This one should get a range from 1 to 0.75. That means usually it's at 1 unless it becomes selected, then it becomes 0.75. And the other one should get a value range from 0.75 to 1.5. You have the opposite thing. If it's selected, the value is high. Now, move this back a little bit. Maybe to this level, because these two are also gonna merge into instancer, must be available now in Geo, where we're gonna put highlight onto the alpha channel. We're gonna put select on the X scale X and the scale Y layer. So what that does is that the thing that I've clicked is now going to be scaled in to maybe make this a bit nicer to look at, which is obviously totally not necessary, but we can go for it. We're gonna put a filter in here, because this is not just a single time slice but a whole range. We need to say filter per sample, and then we're gonna add another null, and we're gonna make that selective. So now you see these channels are constantly broadcasting data. They're cooking all the time. And what I hope now is that this null makes an end to it. What I also hope is that this filter makes the animation much smoother. So let's replace these wires. And see now the green lines are very calm. So unless something changes, nothing is getting broadcasted here all the time. So nothing works anymore. Why? Maybe this is a bit too selective. No, it doesn't really check. It's not selective enough. See, and here we get our nice filtered animation. We can make the filter a bit less, so it becomes a bit more responsive. And now we can check what comes out of this outlets by looking at the nulls. We see we get our selected preview, and remember, every signal that we plug in on the other side will end up here in our preview, and we get the number of the selected object. We don't really need this one, but we will need this one, and we will need this one because for our cross fade we need to know which side is active. So we're gonna need to know which state we're in. We also want to be able to switch that state, and what we can do now is by clicking on a video, we can make that video active in the switcher. So now we can quite easily do that by just hooking up this value to the switcher. So now you see we have the ability to switch between these different sources. And my thinking is that basically we can make another panel with the selected source, and when I click that selected source, that's the source that's going to be live. So we're going to add another container. We're going to call that select A, not selector. So inside that select A, we again want to ask what's going on with this panel, which is me. So we need a panel job, and this time we only want to know if it's select or not, because it's going to be all over the whole container, and we're going to send this to an out. We're also going to add in top, we're going to connect that to our out top. And so far this node doesn't really do anything, but we're going to add a rectangle top here, and we're going to do that because we want that source which is selected should get like a big orange frame, so we know that's the one which is on air and the other one isn't. So in this panel we're going to build a possibility to make a yellow orange frame around our source, and later we're going to switch that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to 1280 by 720. That's also the resolution I'm going to set. I'm gonna set the fill alpha to 0, but I'm gonna set the border color to orange, and I'm gonna make the border with pixels. I'm gonna add 10 pixels. Actually, it should be visible. Let's try. What's happening? Out 2. You see that this also needs the 640 by 360. And here is the orange bar. We're gonna leave it like that for now. I'm gonna see if this gives us the right information. Yes, so now we have a clickable preview of the selected source. And now is the point, I'm afraid we have to go and do a little script. But first, what we want to know is which of these two is selected. So we need a central place where we can store that information. So we're going to lay down a constant. We're going to call that state. And then we're going to add job execute dot that is monitoring what's coming out of this. So is this selected or not? And whenever it is selected, so we're going to monitor, wait, this is our job execute. We're going to monitor this null, we're going to look for the value select, and if it goes from off to on, we're going to trigger a little script in here, and that script reads operator state parameter value 0, which is like the first of the numbers in the constant, equals 0. So this is value null. Let's give it some value and try if that works. Yes. So you see, when I click this, this goes 0. So the natural opponent to this one will be the same thing on the B side, and that will turn state to 1. So whenever one side is always going to turn state to 0, the other one is going to turn state to 1. That way we're going to know which state's always going to know who's on. So I think now is the time to copy this whole stuff down there and make it work for the B side. So it is almost as easy as that, but there's like a few tiny things that we have to change. First of all, this has to come from here. This is alright, but this one should set state to 1. Also, this output should be called source B. So to go to the rename and rename this to source B. And let me check if that is everything. So now these switch state. And what we want to do now is to make state switch the orange frame. So I'm gonna state here, gonna dive in there, and basically, so if state is 0, this has to be visible. So let's take this to the border alpha. Say 1 minus state. It means when state is 0, it is visible. Let's copy this. Let's go to the other side. Paste this. Put here without the 1 minus. So this one becomes 1. It's 0. So let's just see if that does what we want. Okay. Now we want to use state to drive that across, and to make that we make it a tiny bit nicer by adding a lag, and again null. We call that null. XFade for mainly traditional reasons, and then we're gonna connect XFade to cross, and let's see, 5, 13 is right. Always the one with the orange border is also live on the output, which is this one. So if you look at this from the outside, it doesn't look quite as we wanted yet. Stuff is disorganized here. So first thing I'm gonna do is to organize it in here, and I'm gonna do that by opening the palette browser and getting me an empty panel from the tweak window parts. Empty panel. I quite like them. I know that this empty panel should have a size from 280 by 360, and that these two panels should go in here. So this panel on the children side should say left to right, or should say right to left with the numbers on the left, and here's my thing. And I'm going to copy that and repeat this process down here. Obviously I have to disconnect these ones. So now I have two panels which each hold one instance of that thing. Okay, again. Okay, now I have two panels. Is that right? Yes. And the upper panel, I just have to change this here to children, align from top to bottom. And let's give this a try. Almost works, but not here. Let's see what's wrong here, because I had the impression it was actually working. Okay, this is not connected here, so nothing easier than that. This be driven by source B, and now we should see the behavior that we want. Now that we've got this, we could take care of the output. So we lay down another container, which also deserves to be a bit bigger than the rest of the world. We call that output. Let's go in there and place in top. And an Ndi out. This one we're gonna call TD final. Save. So this one we're gonna say he wants to look at touch/in1. So now we all have to do is to connect the switcher to the output, and we have to adjust the resolution. In that case, we want this also to be 1280 by 720. So now we're basically set. If you want to output that, there's like one way you could do it, like you place down two window comps, one for the switcher and one for the output. You would want to turn buttons off. It's automatic, and put this on monitor 0. You can always maybe set it to fill location. You can't see it, but for me it's full screen now. And the same thing you could do with the output window. Just feed it this operator, set it to screen 1, fill location, turn off the borders, and open. There you go. Or if you want to make it a tiny bit more effective on your GPU, you just open one output window. Now, first you add another container with a size of 1280 by 1440, and you feed these two into it, and you set it to top to bottom, and you get this kind of scenario, which you can then output through a single window, which will make it a tiny bit more effective on your GPU, because you don't have to deal with like a very wide image, but something which is almost square, and if a GPU likes something, then it's a square image. So that's basically it for the switcher. The way I would run it is to have like two monitors, one for the switcher, one for the output, and then I could toggle between the switcher and working with the network, the open network, or another possibility would also be to just not see the output, just broadcast the output to the internet, and work with just open TouchDesigner network and the switcher full screen. So now we can start to plug in here some sources, just to show you that it actually works. So here's our test pattern, and here we see it on the switcher, and now I can select it and take it to the output. I think at this point this tutorial has come to a point where you can easily move on for yourself, so I can just recommend to play with all kind of sources. There is also a very nice NDA app for your mobile, so you can stream your mobile phone's camera as an NDI stream. You can grab stuff from browser windows. You can use just regular TouchDesigner inputs. The mixer will not care. If you have any questions or can tell me how I can do some things more effective, please let me know. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you another time.